Ready for another edition of Warpaint TV? Brought to you by Cotman Transmission, Olathe, Kansas, 913-768-1555.
Are you ready for some real football?
Welcome back to Warpaint TV, December 22nd, 2010. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chiefs are 2 games away from their first division title in 7 years, the first trip to the playoffs in 4 years. Our very own Chiefs insider, Nick Athan, is here to my right, as usual. Nick, our own from Warpaint Illustrated, Connor Crawford, was in the press box at the Edward Jones Dome in St. Louis. You yourself stepped out of the press box, came down to the stands. You bought a ticket to the game. Right. You wore your Chiefs red. What was the experience like at the game?
Well, it was amazing. I mean, I know it was reported about 10,000 Chiefs fans there, but there were a lot more, probably closer to 20. From the 20s to the 20s on both sides, they basically dominated the lower bowl. They were loud. The Rams fans were getting upset. We fortunately were sitting in the Chiefs section, so it was good for us. We had a lot of Kansas City fans around there, and it was interesting because there was a lot of St. Louis residents who were Chiefs fans that were there in the game, and this is the only time that they wear their Chiefs red is to come out and support the Chiefs when they travel to the Edward Jones Dome. But hey, it made a huge difference for this football team because they really fed off that energy. You know, it's Edward Jones Dome was Arrowhead East, and we had a blast. It was a great time, great victory. The biggest game this team has played in a long time, and this franchise has played in a long time, probably going back to the Colts playoff game. They had to win this game. They had to prove to themselves, and they did just that. And I think the fans had a lot to do with it.
All right, Nick, I don't want to look like a Debbie's Downer or Nervous Nelly or nitpicking, but 6 out of the last 8 games when the Chiefs' defense is on the field at first, the opposing teams are taking the ball and having long, methodical 7-8-minute drives. We saw that Sunday when the Rams took an 8.5-minute drive down to the Chiefs' 9, settling for a field goal. A week before that, the Chargers went down the field and scored. 2 weeks before that, here in Kansas City, Denver, 7-minute drive down to the Kansas City Chiefs' 33-yard line. Tom Bahali sacked Kyle Orton, taking him out of field goal range. The Arizona Cardinals 2 weeks before that, drove down the field to the 15, settled for a field goal. 6 out of the last 8 games, opposing teams are taking that first possession, driving down the field, settling for a field goal, or in some instances getting a touchdown, putting the Chiefs in a hole. Is that a concern going into these last 2 games and maybe the postseason? Because as a fan, you want to see a quick 3 and out. You want to see the Chiefs defense come off the field. What do you take from that?
Well, I mean, you got to remember that the other team has a plan too, and Romeo Crennel defensively, you saw it. I think more so in the Rams game than you have at any point this season. They got hit in the mouth in the first quarter. They weren't expecting that kind of offense. They weren't expecting a hurry-up offense. They weren't expecting the slants. They were expecting more of a run game. They passed more. So, they had to make adjustments, and the Chiefs made the adjustments. I mean, they held them to 2 field goals, which really was the reason why I think the Chiefs climbed back in this football game. They had gone down 14-0. It's a different situation. But, yeah, it's a concern. But you got to remember, Shane, every one of these teams, offensively and defensively, they kind of have an idea what they're going to do in the first couple of series. And how they make adjustments going forward is really going to determine the success or the failure. Against Denver, they didn't make the adjustments until the third quarter. In the second half, they played pretty well against the Broncos defensively. You look at some of these other games, they kind of have to get hit in the mouth a little bit, but they responded, and that's the good thing. Now, going forward, some parts and pieces came alive last weekend. You saw Wallace Gilberry step up and have a big game. You saw Tom Bahali, who even though he didn't get a sack, he was ever there. Derek Johnson, Kendrick Lewis, your guy who's when he's on the field, the Chiefs win football games. It's just that simple. So, again, Romeo Crennel is a guy who likes to make changes, who is good at making changes. Unlike what we had a few years ago in Gunther Cunningham, Gunther was stubborn. He didn't want to make changes. And you're seeing them do things that they're adapting to what the opposing team is doing, and that's the way it's going to be going forward. Hey, Tennessee's got Chris Johnson's a great running back. We still haven't seen anything out of Randy Moss. You don't want this to be the breakout game. Kerry Collins is a quarterback with his experience. He can throw for 300 yards. He can throw against the Chiefs, defensive secondary if they're not careful. So, again, whatever their approach is going to be, it could be the same thing going in, but I don't think it's a reason to panic.
We'll be right back after a brief message from Cotman Transmission.
My experience at Cotman was phenomenal.
They worked on my car while I waited.
I was in and out in less maybe like 30 minutes.
When you're dealing with your car, you drive it every day, you need someone that you can trust to work on it.
It's a good experience.
I'm a Cotman customer for life.
I trust Cotman.
He's my Cotman man, and he keeps me rolling along.
All right, Nick, as we're taping this, it's Wednesday afternoon. The Chiefs game's not officially yet a sold out. There's still a concern that it may not be sold out, which is surprising to me.
Right.
You know, Todd Haley still talks about this team, you know, in press conferences he'll say, you know, sometimes he'll say, we're not ready, we're not there yet, we're close. You know, does that go hand in hand with the tickets being sold, or do you think it's just part of the recession in the economy? What do you think the vibe is right now with the fans?
Well, I think it's a combination of all those things. I mean, obviously the economy is different. It's Christmas time. The Chiefs have 2 home games, you know, right around the holiday season, which is always problematic because a lot of people go out of town. They've got vacation plans. They've got family coming in. They can't go to the game on Sunday. You're talking about the day after Christmas. Now, if this had been on Christmas Day, I don't think there's any question it would have been a sold out. But, you know, that brings to light, you know, something, too, because the Chiefs are in first place. And who knows what's going to happen the next couple of weeks, because we're still playing with house money because, A, no one thought the Chiefs would be here. B, they've moved up their rebuilding process a year ahead of time, and they're done rebuilding. It's now a matter of putting the right pieces in place, building a better foundation for the football team, and one that can win game in and game out, win championships. The Chiefs have done the hard part. It's over. But the fans still kind of have this attitude, well, you know, maybe they're not quite good yet. And, yeah, Todd Haley isn't helping things by saying we're not quite a good team yet. We still have – but you know what? At least he's being honest, and he's right. But from the fan perspective, we have to look at this and say this is our football team. You know, you look no further than what happened last weekend in St. Louis. All those Chiefs fans, they want to believe. That they're close to believing, but they're just not quite there yet. And I think coming out Sunday, you know, and even if the Oakland game is a no-nonsense game, it doesn't mean anything. You know, go out there and support the fans and get ready for the playoffs because the Chiefs, I believe, will host a playoff game in 3 weeks.
You know, as a Chiefs fan 21 years ago when Marty Schottenheimer took over, the first thing he said was, the goal for the Kansas City Chiefs in 1989 is to be Super Bowl champions. Right then, right there, had to sold at least 10,000 season tickets.
Yeah, the thing that's interesting, though, the only guy that said that in the offseason was Thomas Jones. Yep. When he came in the offseason program, they got in the weight room as a team. He said, guys, forget about setting your sights on winning the AFC West. We're here to build and to win a championship team. And you know what? They're not that far off. I mean, you can say what you want, and we've all looked at the playoff scenarios, and I know we're jumping ahead of the game, but you know what? The Chiefs match up very well with all the teams except for the Patriots. And I think offensively, Matt Castle and that offense against the Patriots defense, I like their chances. But defensively, against Tom Brady, that's a different thing entirely. But you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but why not talk about it because it's Christmas time? You know, the Steelers are with Troy Polamalu probably out. You know, he could be out an extended period of time. Ben Roethlisberger still, you know, he's not 100%. That offense doesn't score points. The Ravens, hey, they played great last week against the Saints, a game that I never thought they could win. But you know what? They have had a problem, you know, defensively. They've still given up a lot of points in the last couple of weeks, not something they used to. The New York Jets, the frauds, the pretenders, are not going to come in here and beat the Kansas City Chiefs. You know, the Chargers could end up in the 6th seed depending on how it falls. But you look at all these teams, you know, the Chiefs, because of the style of team they are, is because of the way they run the ball, the way they can play defense, the way their offense is balanced. That's really going to give them an opportunity. And I'll say this, and again, this is why fans need to be more excited about this football team. Who wants to play the Kansas City Chiefs? I can guarantee the Indianapolis Colts don't want to. I can guarantee the Jacksonville Jaguars don't want to. And it's really important the Chiefs finishes the 3 seed. That way they don't play the Patriots should they get to the AFC Championship game until the last one. But I will say this. I think the Chiefs are going to get there. I think they'll end up in the number 3 seed. And I like their chances to win their first-round game, no question. After that, they're going to have to go on the road and prove themselves.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first from Chiefs Insider Nick Athan. Listen to him Friday from 2 to 6 on 610 Sports and 610sports.com. He'll be filling in for Nick Wright. All right, buddy, give me a prediction. Chiefs, Titans coming to town. What's going to happen? Give me a score, buddy.
I think it's going to be a closer game than people realize. I think we're probably looking at a 24-21, 23-21 victory. I think it's going to be in doubt late in the fourth quarter, but I think the Chiefs, because they're at home, I think they'll pull a victory out. And then everybody's going to be going home, watching TV to see what the Chargers do against the Bengals. And what I'm told is going to be 16 degrees and wind chills well below 0. at a 4 o'clock kickoff, and the Bengals have a little turmoil themselves. And I wouldn't be surprised if about 6:30, 7 o'clock on Sunday night, the Chiefs have wrapped up the AFC West.
Again, for Chiefs Insider Nick Athan, I'm Shane Wims with Warpaint TV. From the entire staff at WarpaintIllustrated.com, happy holidays.
Merry Christmas.
Don't miss another edition of Warpaint Illustrated the magazine. To get your subscription today, call 888-979-0979. That's 888-979-0979, or check out warpaintillustrated.com.